mai kako. Woo, good first start of the day from beautiful music of Raiatea. Just so grounding, so inspirational, such a reminder of the brilliance and innovation and creativity of our kupuna. To seeing the leadership across the Ali'i Trust consider ways to synergize efforts, benefit ʻāina and people, community together. To that fantastic last panel, just looking at on the ground creative ways, utilizing systems and structures that probably weren't meant to necessarily get our people back on ʻāina. A lot of them probably were designed to allow people some tax breaks. and we're doing some really creative, amazing stuff with them. So how about a hand again for all our panelists? And so it's my real honor and privilege to have a chance to invite some of my good friends up here in our final panel for the day before we have Justice Joe and a keynote. And so in this panel, we're looking at community governance and land returns. I'm going to introduce the panelists, and then I'll call them up to join me. First panelist is Camille Kalama. Camille is of the famous class of '96 of Kamehameha Schools. If anyone wasn't aware, I know some people from there. Camille and her family live in Waiāwa. They call Hanakehau Learning Farm, a space dedicated to the restoration of land and Hawaiian cultural practices. Since 2006, Camille has served as a staff attorney with the Native Hawaiian Legal Corporation. She attended the University of Hawaii and earned a Bachelor's of Arts in Geography in 2000, and as a 2005 graduate, and is a 2005 graduate of the William S. Richardson School of Law. She joined Native Hawaiian Legal Corp in 2006 after clerking for 1 year at the Hawaii Supreme Court. Ms. Kalama sees her work with NHLC to protect and preserve Native rights and resources as her kuleana or responsibility as a Native Hawaiian. Put a hand for Camille. Davis Price is a licensed attorney and graduate of the William S. Richardson School of Law and the Waimānalo School of Hawaiian Knowledge at the University of Hawaii Manoa. He's an FNFP fellow, by the way. He spent over 15 years as an advocate for ʻāina and Native Hawaiian rights in the area of public policy, always grounding his work in grassroots community engagement and organizing. He's a co-founder of the ʻAina Aloha Economic Futures Initiative, which is a Native Hawaiian-led effort to establish a multi-sector economic framework that provides strategies and tactics to address climate justice, equitable economic development in Hawaii. He's a co-founder and business development strategist for Moʻolono Keala, a 501c3 nonprofit social enterprise that centers Native Hawaiian agriculture as a community and economic development model. And he's a Numa Kuakane. How about a hand for David? And then we have Brandon Makaawaawa. Brandon is a Hawaiian sovereignty advocate, community educator, and digital innovator. As vice president of the independent Nation of Hawaiʻi, he works alongside President Dennis Bumpy Kanahele to manage Koʻihonua o Waimānalo, a 45-acre sovereign village on Oʻahu dedicated to restoring traditional Hawaiian land governance, stewardship, and self-sufficiency. As a central leader in the nation's efforts, Makaawaawa has championed initiatives to educate communities about the Ahupua'a system and how it can be applied today to address modern challenges. By blending ancestral ecological knowledge with contemporary technology, this work helps build a sustainable, community-driven ecosystem. Makaawaawa has also represented the Nation of Hawaiʻi at the United Nations Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues, delivering interventions on topics such as Hawaiian national sovereignty, peaceful coexistence, reconciliation, and indigenous economic development. How about a hand for Brother Brandon? And our fourth panelist is Kaipulaumakaniolono Keala. He's a Moʻolono for the Protect Kahoʻolawe ʻOhana and assistant professor with Kamakakuakalani Center for Hawaiian Studies. Kaipu has been involved in Piʻo Summit from the very beginnings and has helped Kako'o in so many ways. He's an amazing playwright, actor, one of the most amazing practitioners of oli and haku that I've come across. And so it's an honor to have Kaipu join us. And the last one is just me. So everybody come up and let's do this. I can stand. No. I have to share one mic. Okay, so I wanted to break channel. Oh, okay, sorry. Aloha, everybody. I wanted to check in, and this is an incredible panel, and we're going to address issues of militarism on our ʻāina, kind of grassroots efforts for establishing ea and sovereignty, and these critical engagements on places like Kahoʻolawe and really across Hawaii. But I just wanted to start by giving everyone a chance to have an opening statement. I introduced you some, but maybe you can share more of your work or your vision for Hawaii in the work that you do. Brandon, you want to? Yep.
Aloha kākou. Mahalo kamana, and everybody that joined us today. Our vision is simple. It's for full independence over our lands and our people. And every Hawaiian has the ability to assert their sovereignty. It's not just government leads or leaders or whatever. Everybody plays a role in this. And, the work that Uncle Bumpy them did and our kupuna that helped establish Koʻihonua, Waimānalo, gave us, the blueprint and a land base where we can practice those skills now and learn from some of the challenges that we had. But I believe we all have the abilities to self-govern ourselves independently, and we need to keep pushing, like how Kali said this morning, assert our sovereignty. And so that's my little thing. Thanks.
Davis, yeah.
Aloha mai kākou. Super honored and humbled to be here, and I first want to acknowledge some of my kumu and mentors that's in the room. I see kumu Lili Kala and kumu John Osorio and Uncle Neo Hannes. Just trying to live up to everything that I've always just tried to live up to everything they instilled in me through my path here through University of Hawaii and First Nations Future. It's good to see Justice Joel in 15 years as well. That said, my work, I really, I think I was trying to nail this down because I'm kind of all over the place, and I was trying to figure out how to summarize what I do. And I think where I'm at right now is I'm really trying to expand the definition of ʻāina stewardship. And that work lives at the cross-section of activism and community development. Like we cannot get our land back and thrive on the land without fighting for it and without ideating and implementing those ideas to sustain ourselves, and not only sustain, but to try to thrive on these lands. And so that really it's a lot of work that we have to collectively do, and that's where I'm at. And I think with all the hats that I wear, that it always comes back to that work. And I feel like, I think you mentioned the vision for Hawaii, and I think the vision is tied to what I feel is my kuleana as part of this generation that learned from and studied under the folks who led the fight to protect so much of our resources, to protect our land and our water. 50 years of frontline and legal battles to protect. How do we evolve from that? And I think the vision is, the evolution requires us to do something with those resources. So if we fight for 30 years to protect water and restore stream flows, we better grow some kalo and feed our people. And so that's kind of what drives me. Mahalo.
Mahalo. Mahalo, Davis. Beautiful. Camille?
Aloha mai kākou. Also want to acknowledge all of our mentors and frontliners who we stand in the footsteps of today, and without whom the work that we do in our community couldn't be possible. I gotta make a disclaimer. So I am not a staff attorney at the Native Hawaiian Legal Corporation anymore. I was until 2018. And so hopefully that's not why you invited me.
No, for all of you, everything you do, and apologies for the mix-up on the bio, my bad.
That was I was traveling. But no, I still maintain an active license, so I spent about almost 15 years litigating Native Hawaiian rights. And in 2016, my partner and I, we founded Koʻihonua, and we are a nonprofit organization who got the opportunity to steward and malama ʻāina in Waiāwa, Makai, on this island of Oʻahu, which is in Puʻuloa. And I wouldn't say that it would be our first choice. None of us are actually from Puʻuloa, and there are other families in Waiāwa who have been there for generations, and we respect them highly. But it is a place that we've been for the longest period of my life. My family doesn't have family land that we can go back to, so we are creating relationship in ʻāina, in Waiāwa. And we're on Kamehameha School's land, and grateful for the opportunity to build that pilina there. And many of you have come and shared and given to us and helped us restore some of the abundance that we know is there, because our kupuna talked about it, our kupuna wrote about it, and our people saw it. And so for us, being in Puʻuloa, we have a lot of students that come through. I want to recognize Emily. I don't know if she's inside here, but she might have helped you with your name tag outside. She's a PhD student in urban and regional planning and has been one of our longtime student interns at Hanakehau. And our other student, Bryson Tugade, he just published a paper, or co-authored a paper that was published about communities, teaching communities how to do their own contamination testing in places like the one where we're at. And he's also one of our longest researchers and students that have worked with us. So what do we do? Everybody, it's hard to explain. We do a lot of different things, but our philosophy and what we built our organization around is ku'e and kukulu. And we found that after a decade of like 1-800 dial a protest, everybody, we need you here, we need you there, or going because you're compelled, because there are issues that our people face, our ʻāina faces, that affect all of Hawaii, that you cannot just stay at home and be on the farm where I'd rather be, where many of us would rather be. And we found that when we were done with some of those actions or issues, we didn't have anything to come back to. So we were looking for ʻāina to build, to kukulu from, and looking at our work that sometimes you have to step in front of the bulldozer. You have to get in front of the trucks because that's what's imminent. But in all the time in between, if we're not building, if we're not focusing on kukulu, what are we leaving for the next generations? And so at Hanakehau, that's what we're trying to build. So we have a carving revitalization program, and that's exciting and work for cultural practice. We also have a social justice activism training program, teaching nonviolent direct action, because when we look at some of our biggest issues and wins in our community in Hawaii over the years, there are many times where the law fails us. And it's community that hopped the fence. It's community that came out, and the ones who are living in relationship with that ʻāina at that time, who come out and are the fiercest, strongest, peaceful fighters for those places. And there's strategy and there's tactics around how to do that in a way that we can still survive as a people in the face of the biggest, most powerful and lawless military at this point on the planet. So that's a little bit about what we do.
Mahalo, Camille. Mahalo.
Ano ai e ka velina ke aloha I nā ohuku e kuana o a kāka me nāle hua a kāka. E hoa kāka mai ana, e vehe mai ana I ke kai ao, ka pualena ke aoloa, I ike lihi ai kākou I hulali ana o ke aka lai ka wai pe e palai o wai a ke akua. Ke aloha hoi I like mena ka mea I hapai mua ia I nā hanauna o nā koa mua nāna I naku hele aku I ke ala I loko o ka hihipea o ka nā hele I hoʻokupe kanu iho, ka nui o Coca-Cola hui hiki. Maluna no o ka lako ala I ka moe ai, maluna hoi o ke ala kua mo'o I waiho ia e Coca-Cola e kupuna e kua I kākou. Me ia aloha hai kupuna wau e vili nā kua ia o ko pakahi a pau ke aloha nui. Mahalo nui Kamana for bringing us here. Mahalo nui to everybody in attendance. My name is Kaipulaumakaniolono and I'm with the Protect Kahoʻolawe ʻOhana. And what do we do with the Protect Kahoʻolawe ʻOhana? Okay. The Protect Kahoʻolawe ʻOhana is now celebrating January 4th, 1976. It was the big landing on Kahoʻolawe all those years ago. But the Protect Kahoʻolawe ʻOhana is not just 1976. 1976 is important, but for the 50 years after that, the negotiation with the consent decree in 1980, the stewardship of the island, bringing over 50,000 people to Kahoʻolawe, to allow our lahui to see the state of devastation of the island that was, used as a bombing range. Nearly every bomb known to humanity, aside from chemical and nuclear, was dropped on the island between for about just after December, World War II, all the way until 1992. So the work of the Protect Kahoʻolawe ʻOhana for a long time was stopping the bombing. In 1990, the tireless work of people like Uncle Emmett Aluli, of people like the Edith Kanaka Ole Foundation and ʻOhana, of people like Uncle Craig Neff, Auntie Daviana McGregor, of that whole generation, with the support, of course, of the kupuna who lent them their ike, like Uncle Harry Kunihi Mitchell. They stopped the bombing. And from then on, there was a cleanup process. There was a period of conveyance of the island that eventually came to be held back in trust for a future sovereign Hawaiian entity, according to Hawaii Revised Statute 6K. And all this work of revitalizing Kahoʻolawe, of stopping the bombing and building something and proving that Kanaka can establish some sort of residency, some sort of kahua for Kanaka. That's been the historical work of the ʻOhana. And this work was always guided by this expression that we use all the time today, and that's aloha ʻāina, which came from Uncle Emmett's great-grand-aunt's journal, which he found when he and George were trying to come up with, what are we going to tell people? What are we going to tell people that we're doing here? And they said, we're gonna aloha this ʻāina. And this aloha is not it's not this sort of oh, I love them, you know, kind of like, oh, it's this kind of, oh, yes, I love you, sis, you know, go about your way, you know. But it's an aloha paumako, it's an aloha makolukolu, it's an aloha that is deeply grounded in, it bears the weight of lives lost. It's an aloha that is almost kind of a melancholic grief which compels us to work for the ʻāina, because the ʻāina furnishes our very conditions of possibility for existence. And it's an aloha that continues to reiterate for every hanauna that follows, that we gotta make those lives mean something, because only retroactively will the mana of their commitments, will the gravity of what they did be valorized. And this is the aloha that we joyously burden. And it's an aloha that we hope to impound upon everybody who we bring to Kahoʻolawe, because it's this recognition that we are already, no matter how you look at it, we are already indebted to this ʻāina. We are already, and by virtue of this ʻāina, we are already indebted to one another. And how we facilitate or provide infrastructure for this network of reciprocity has always been guided by this olelo that we received from the ʻOhana kuloloyo. Auntie Alice coined it, and Uncle Les is really the person who really preached it to us in the Protect Kahoʻolawe ʻOhana, is la'a ma'a pa'a. Before you do anything, Auntie Alice would say, you gotta make la'a, you gotta make sacred, you gotta sanctify, because it is in making la'a that you ho'ola'a that object that you're working on. You know, if you're working on, you carving something or you're writing something, you do your pule and you ho'ola'a what you're working on. But in that making la'a what you're working on, you make la'a yourself to that project. And you gotta come ma'a to this position of being la'a. And so when we ho'ola'a the ʻāina, elevate it to this level of being an ali'i, just like our kupuna say, he ali'i ka ʻāina, he kawa ke kanaka. But that's not how we regularly relate to the ʻāina. We typically, you know, now we use the ʻāina as kind of like one resource, you know, we gotta take what we can from it, blah, 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 blah. But that's not how our kupuna thought. We was subjected to the ʻāina. We was kawa to the ʻāina. We was slaves to the ʻāina. Yeah? And we gotta make ma'a to this position of being la'a to the ʻāina that is our ali'i. And it's only by way of becoming ma'a to this relationship of la'a that we can become pa'a. Because to be a lahui isn't just one nation, lahui is one kapu. Lahui is one prohibition. Lahui is, you know, it's a command. It's a law. It's not something that you can just be part of the lahui naturally. Nobody is naturally part of the lahui. What you do is what puts you in the lahui. And you know, and PKO methodology is you gotta make la'a, ma'a, and pa'a for be part of the lahui. And it's all on credit of your work. Because makahana valinoi ike ai. Not maika ike kahana. Okay? Yeah, so that's who I represent, the Protect Kahoʻolawe ʻOhana.
Mahalo, mahalo. Okay, maybe we'll jump to another question, and either Davis or Camille, if you want to jump in on this. Can you please discuss the issue of military leases and the critical period we are in with their potential renewal or lack of?
I'll kick it off. Mahalo. And so I think I want to start off by establishing what I think is some baselines for us to collectively approach this issue. And that just starts with what we should be, what I envision as the part of the outcome that we want to see, and that is, by all means, no new leases, by all means, the land needs to be cleaned up. We want governance and control of lands back. And to live fire training once and for all in Hawaii, period. And to make it very clear that the governor and the state of Hawaii does not negotiate on behalf of Native Hawaiians. And I think we have legal standing to assert and achieve all of those things. We have legal standing, we have kuleana standing, and what I think we're missing is the collective mana to make all those things happen. And it's not missing because we're not lacking of anything. It's just missing because we haven't done it, and it's time to move. And I know it's after lunch, and you know, I feel like it's time to wake up right now, after lunch, and in general. And this is not, you know, meant to call anybody out. It's a call in, but this is really an all hands on deck moment. And I think that those 4 or 5 things that I just rattled off are very easy for all of us to agree on. Too often, we tell ourselves we disagree, and somebody might have a nuance, well, no new leases but this, or why you gotta say that, and period, no new leases, land back. We want control of the land, we want to make plans, we want to move forward. We need to recalibrate this relationship with the military. They are the boss of everybody in Hawaii. You ever been, how many people here have rented one place to live? Has been a tenant? You've been a tenant. You guys tell the landlord what you like do and make the rules. Do you? So why we allow them to do that? That's what's happening and what's been happening for 100 years. And so we have to think about, like when I was thinking about how to talk about this issue and how we're going to strategize around it, we really have to look back at how we got where we're at and start to reverse engineer some tactics to expose what is wrong with this relationship and educate folks, and then find the courage to stand up to these guys and confront them the way that PKO did in 1976, the way that our kupuna did on the ala on Mauna Kea. That's what it's going to take. And, you know, this kind of spaces, 18 years ago, I sat in on panel discussion as a law student on the ceded lands issue. And the question was like, well, what did Kapua Sproat? Said, somebody go ask this question. She was our kumu, another kumu in the room. Said, well, what can we do as students? And they said, get in the street. We got to make noise. And that's really where I think we're at with these leases. We can get into the details of how much acreage, but, you know, and we do need to go over that, but the reality is we have the evidence. We know what they did to Kahoʻolawe. We know what happened at Kapukaki, Red Hill. We know that they lied to us. We see what this war machine does to the rest of the world. It's happening right now. It's all about extraction and control of resources. We're a staging ground for it. We're at risk because of it. We're told that we need them for our economy and we need to challenge that. And so I think that there's going to be some work coming out, you know, there's some work underway now to, unfortunately, we have to like take these extraordinary steps, which is, I'm part of a research group that's being led by the Institute for Policy Studies, which is a think tank out of Washington, D.C., that's assembled a team of scholarly researchers from around the United States who have expertise in researching and studying and compiling the impacts of militarization around the world. It's in association with the Cost of War Project, which is founded out of the Brown University. And we're looking at all of these things that we're told to basically debunk and counter the narratives that we've been force-fed for 100 years. That the military protects us, that the military is needed in order for us to survive economically. And we're going to challenge all of it. piece by piece. We're going to talk about the actual environmental impacts and costs. We're going to talk about the actual housing impacts. We're going to talk about how the military impacts us negatively, which is the truth in Hawaii, and the burden that taxpayers bear as a result of the military being here. So we have to do all this wonky research so that we can get in front of policymakers who just would make, rather take the easier route to just believe what they're told by the institution of the military and move things along at whatever request the military makes. And so we're doing all these steps, we're taking all these steps so that we can counter these by fact-checking, essentially, the lies that we're told. And once that happens, we're going to have a mobilization on the ground to create the political pressure. And I'll end with this. Like, we've done it before. We cannot allow our leaders to be fearful. We need fearlessness. We need courage. And we need to stand up to these guys, because when we've done it in the past, we've won. Kahoʻolawe shows us that. And the blueprint is civil disobedience, nonviolent direct action, coupled with legal action, coupled with political pressure on our leaders. All those things together is how we win. And so there's a role for everybody. We don't need people saying, oh, well, why are they doing that? I like doing them. Why are they doing that? I like doing them. Well, go find a place, make some noise, and be disruptive as hell. That's what we got to do. Check there.
Mahalo, David.
Right on, mahalo, Davis, for setting the context. That's awesome. I think there's a few key facts about what's happening that we should all be aware of, and many of you might be, but many might not. So, I think about in this moment in time, what can we do that can set up our future generations to have a leg to stand on? Because what happened in 1893, when Lili'u yielded her authority to the United States, until such time as they reviewed the facts and restored her authority, we still can stand on that as showing that these lands are unceded. They were never ceded. There's no consent there. And that factors into what's happening today with the military lands. So just like you said, Kamana, after the overthrow, thousands of transactions happened, right? Well, after statehood, so did these leases that we're talking about today in the 1960s. And, the one for Pahakuloa, when I was at Native Hawaiian Legal Corporation, that case was going on. And the requirement in the lease was that the military would clean up after every training exercise. Every training exercise, not at the end of the lease, not when it's time to return it to the state, every training exercise. So the question was asked to the BLNR, or DLNR, what have you done to make sure your lease provisions are complied with? One phone call in almost 60 years. No inspections, nothing. And so the judge was very disturbed about the potential here and saying, we know what happened on Kahoʻolawe. We know what happens when you wait and you let the damage happen, that $400 million can't clean up, right? So what are you going to do now to make sure that doesn't happen? As the trustee right now holding these lands in trust. Well, needless to say, the court ruled against the state, because our lawsuit was saying the state failed in its duties to fulfill its trust responsibilities. So for Pahakuloa, and like many other leases, they're on Oʻahu, there's Kauai, there's Army, there's Air Force, there might be Navy as well. What has happened is that the Army has put forth their environmental impact statement for the Oʻahu lands, and had drafted their statement for Pahakuloa. And the BLNR rejected the EIS for Oʻahu. And if you've read it, I won't claim to have read every single page. There's over 2,000 pages in there. It says they will not disclose, they will not look at what the conditions are on those lands right now unless and until those lands are determined to be returned to the state. So we don't even know what their condition they're in. We don't know what it's going to cost to clean them up. We don't know, the billions and billions of dollars to undo the damage that's already been done. So when we're talking today, one, there's no mechanism to renew any of these leases. There's nothing in the lease. There's nothing in state law. Extensions, nothing. They don't qualify. So we're talking about new agreements, right? That lease process is dead in the water. Their environmental impact statement failed. There's been no appeal. And so there's basically no movement there. So we're not really talking about leases. The other military branches didn't even try after they saw that. So what are we talking about? That's one of the questions. We're talking about now military looking at exchange. So what can they exchange for, right? So these unceded lands that they're holding, that they took at the time of, after the overthrow, at the time of statehood, they can't be used as an exchange. You're gonna give back what you took, that doesn't fly. So what have they done? They've purchased land, right? I believe it's Keamuku on Hawaii Island has been purchased in preparation for this exchange, or desire to exchange. And right now, the Army is the only one really pursuing this. That's apparently to us. And right now, if you all heard, the pressure that Driscoll put on the governor to come up with a deal by the end of the year. And then it comes out that there was no authorization for that. That wasn't something that they could actually legally do. So part of our job as community is to continue to put the pressure to investigate, find out the facts for ourselves, and bring that to light and shine the light on everything that's going on, and continue to harp on our own government, on our leaders, to be transparent, to be open, not no closed door behind, by yourself, we're gonna negotiate something. There's nothing to negotiate. I mean, at this point, the military occupies some 200,000 and more acres of Hawaii. 40,000 of them are under lease, or somewhat over 40,000. With the damage that's been done, with the promises that have been broken everywhere from Waikane to Pohakuloa to Kahoʻolawe, the evidence is overwhelming that no agreement that we make today has any real effect. Like, nothing that we could agree to can be held accountable against the military. The state can't even hold its own, uphold its own leases. And so, for me, the only conclusion is those gotta come back. There's no amount of benefits, there's no amount of money that can be offered to Hawaii in exchange for continued damage or expanded damage. That's not even gonna cover what's already been done. So the governor put out a number, $10 billion. We don't even have the information from the military about whether that would even begin to clean up what's been done. So where we are in Pu'uloa, we're right across the fence from a Superfund site. It's been identified by the EPA as priority for cleanup. Some of the most toxic places across the military holdings in the U.S. And it's been on a plan to have a plan for cleanup for 25 years. There's no money and there's no plan. So that's just one out of 18 regions of Superfund sites in Pu'uloa alone. And so when I think about, what we talked about earlier today, Vai and Vaivai, Ewa and Waiawa produces some of the most fresh water in Hawaii. 100 million gallons a day for the city and county out of Waiawa well. 15 million gallons for the Army out of Waiawa. All feeds into Pu'uloa. I mean, the Ewa region is just so rich. And so when I look out, at the Navy or the ships that are basically in their graveyard in Pu'uloa, in the Joint Base and all the facilities, connected to Kopukaki, to Red Hill, I imagine a future where that is all gone. And we have our fish ponds back. We have our oysters back. We have our we have our families able to go and fish and paddle and utilize these places for food, for ʻāina, for production. I have no idea if I answered your question.
You did perfectly. Mahalo, mahalo. I'm going to jump to another question. So, and this is Brandon, Kaipu, if anyone else wants to jump in. But can you please share some of the success of your organization or efforts in getting ʻāina back to community or defending, restoring ʻāina, some of the work that you guys do?
Yeah, thanks for the question. About 33 years ago now, Uncle Bumpy helped lead an occupation of Kaupo Beach down at what a lot of people call Baby Makapu'u, and it was in response to the growing houseless issue in not just Waimānalo but all throughout Oʻahu and Hawaii. And that was Year of the Hawaiian. It was a big, celebration, big commemoration, understanding what happened there, the march at Iolani Palace, all these things. But every time he would come out of his driveway and head down the road, you would see all our ʻOhana on the beach still. And they were getting harassed constantly by the cops. And, my uncle had history occupying places before. He occupied Makapu'u Lighthouse with his ʻOhana, and they got violently evicted. And so he wasn't afraid of occupation, but what he wanted to do is kind of instill this sense of safety for the people. And he was like, I led an occupation before. He started talking with the houseless. And, I know that with numbers, and if we're together, it's harder to move us around. So he gathered the first group of houseless at Kaupo, about 40 people. He brought his tents and he said, we just go stay here. We're having the meeting, but let's just stay. And that's what started the 15-month-long occupation. What happened during that time, that was in March of 1993. They were occupying there, the cops never know what to do, the city, everybody's sending tickets and whatever they do. And they never leave, and because get plenty of people now. But he got word that there was this law that was moving through Congress that was going to be significant. He had a friend that knew this lawyer, Francis Boyle. He's a professor of international law at University of Illinois. He was Yasser Arafat's legal advisor. He helped the Palestinian people create their Declaration of Independence. And he was very attuned to what America was doing all over the world, and he wasn't up for it. He got word to my uncle that if they pass this law as currently written, it'll totally change things. There's only been 5 apologies that the United States has ever given to anybody in its 250 years of chaos. And the Hawaiian people got one of those apologies. They not only got one of those apologies, but it's signed into law. So in 1993, America, November 23rd, signs the apology law and basically admits that the Hawaiian people have never relinquished their sovereignty. That's a fact. It's not just hearsay. I know people is following some of the social media stuff. Kamaka Diaz had the governor on top. They asked him about this question. No clue. Brother thinks it's a position. Sovereignty is ours. It belongs to every Kanaka. And they also say that we have never been compensated for the theft of 1.8 million acres of our kingdom lands. And this was key because where they were occupying was public lands. And so now, what started off as a houseless occupation now turned into a national land restoration. So he began teaching all the houseless people about the apology law and began empowering them that when the cops show up with their tickets, let's show up with the apology law and give that to them too at the same time. So they would be coming there, serving whatever they're going to serve, and then they would like, oh, brother, hang on. You forgot this. You read this law before. And they don't know, right? They're just the cops. They're just doing their thing. And they take on me. And uncle is like, Go talk to your sergeant. Go find out about this law, because we're not going until you guys give us one opinion. So they go back to their car, they sit around 15 minutes talking story, they leave. They did that for another 12 months. Couldn't get our people off of there, because now we stay asserting our sovereignty, utilizing their own federal laws. And so by the time our occupation ended, it didn't end with an eviction. It ended on our terms. They gave us land. They gave us ʻāina. More stolen land, but this time in the back of Waimānalo, as far from the road as they could get. You know, I always tell people these three things. This is how we got ʻāina from the state. You know, it's 3 points of pressure. You can stand something up. One, we had an educated population, you know, understood their rights. That's the most important thing. If we leave this room with anything, is to understand that sovereignty lives within us. None of us on this panel can go ahead and give you guys sovereignty. You guys have to believe it and understand it yourselves so that you can assert it yourselves. You don't need Bumpy Kanahele or Keanu Saif who go up there and talk for you guys. You can talk for yourselves. The second thing is, we protested every single day for 15 months across of a big tourist attraction, Sea Life Park, constantly, pressure. We also occupied Sea Life Park one time. Uncle and his cousins went over there, shut the gate. The buses couldn't even come in. They did that one time. They were scared of that every single day we was across the beach park. So to Davis's point, disruption. 2, right? 3, again, to Davis's point, we had a critical mass of people. Now, when we're talking about what David's talking about, it sounds like thousands and thousands of people. Our critical mass to go get 45 acres and pry that away from the state was 300 people. 300 people that was committed to something, that understood their rights, and was willing to pay the price. But that's how we won our ʻāina.
Yeah, it's always beautiful to hear.
We can do that again. So,
Yeah. No, mahalo nui for sharing that mo'olelo, Brandon. It's beautiful to hear our victory stories. And, you know, a lot of the success of the Protect Kahoʻolawe ʻOhana is hardly ever credited to the membership of the ʻOhana. It's always credited to the kupuna who advised the people who were running the ʻOhana. And even our stalwart leader, Uncle Emmett Aluli, who carried the ʻOhana for 48 years until his passing, he never wanted to take credit. He always said, "Oh, George said this," or "Uncle Harry told me this," or "Uncle Les would advise us about this," and that base level of humility, I think, is a key part of the recipe of the Protect Kahoʻolawe ʻOhana's success, is because everything that the ʻOhana did is about what does the island need, what does Kanaloa need, because that is what we're working for. Whenever we get discussion in the ʻOhana about what to do or what plan we like take, it's always okay. Good, you get your idea. Good, you get your idea. But what is best for the island? What is best for Kanaloa? What is best for Koʻihonua Lama Lama? And what is best for that's what's best for the ʻOhana. And so, in that vein, one of the things that Georgetown would always say is, if everybody could just touch that island, they would know what they're missing. And what they're missing is an island that speaks back, an ʻāina that speaks back to you, that's going to compel you to reciprocate the aloha that it is providing for you. That even though it's a terrible place, you look at all the caverns in the earth, all washed out, no more soil, no more topsoil. It's all hard pan. It's hard for plant, hard for live, but yet it still provides so much. And George's insight that you just got to go and touch that land. You think about this in terms of the context of military occupations, and what is military a symptom of? Military is a symptom of capitalism. Okay? Capitalism requires ever new frontiers to realize surplus value because they can exploit the worker, they can suck surplus value out of each and every one of us, and that becomes profit. But you cannot, the people who own all that commodities and stuff, they cannot buy that stuff, they already own them. And what, we can buy all the stuff? No, we cannot buy them. So they need somebody for sell too. And the way that capitalism extracts from places, you can always need one more place for exploit, one more place for exploit, one more place for exploit. And so you need a military to back that up. And so the military occupation becomes this sort of, this pohaku niho of capitalism. It needs ever new frontiers. Okay? And what is the basic condition of capitalism? Okay? Anybody read Marx? It takes you a while to get through and understand the commodity fetish and all this whatever kind of complicated stuff. Okay? I read through the dialectic and this becomes exactly its opposite. That's kind of hard to understand. But if you get to page 990 something, okay, right at the end of the book, all you gotta read is the last 10 pages. Okay, I promise. Okay, okay, that's not my official position as on Kumu. Okay, but in that last chapter, okay, he gives this theory of colonization. Okay, and he says the basic presupposition of capitalism is it has to annihilate people's relationship to the land. Because if you can subsist, if you can provide for yourself, that's you reproducing yourself already. Okay? And if we can subsist together and we can provide for each other, just like how they was talking in the panel before, we get all this, land that's supposed to be held in common. It's supposed to be, subject to the right of native tenants. We get customary rights, whatever. But it's not real. It's not real until we realize it. And so the message of the Ohana has always been, you gotta get to the ʻāina. You gotta get to that ʻāina so that you can begin to cultivate it, so that you can begin to build a base of what is one lahui. Because, and this is a really strong point. That was a point of big contention in the Ohana in 1980, because the question was, are we gonna compromise and allow for this consent decree that is going to say we get 10 days access a month, but the military can keep bombing, and but then we can tell them they got to do reforestation and some minimal cleanup and eradicate the goats and stuff like that. Some people in the Ohana, they didn't really like that. Okay, they didn't like the idea of a compromise. They wanted to say all or nothing. Okay? You either going to stop the bombing, or we're going to go back to occupying. But after George Helm and Kimo Mitchell lost their lives trying for salvage one faulty occupation, the kupuna said, that is too much. We cannot do that anymore. We got to get people on the land. We got to get people touch the land, like George said. Because it is when we begin to be in relationship with the ʻāina. It's like, people don't really know this, but actually February 1976, there was one legal authorized landing on Kahoʻolawe. And that was at the behest of Uncle Sam Lono and Auntie Emma DeFries and some kupuna from Molokai who said, you got to ask permission from the island first. The ʻāina not going to just accept you with open arms, okay? I think sometimes we get trapped into this. We get this abstract idea, the ʻāina is our kupuna, whatever. But the kupuna not going to embrace you if you don't know their name. And so you got to go call them. You got to go to that place. You got to make yourself humble, make yourself ready. Come with ho'okupu, come with pule, and come ready to accept whatever answer they're going to give you. And so when they had that original ceremony in February 1976, that's what opened the door. That's what laid the foundation for everything that the Ohana has done. And it's that leading with la'a, and la'a means two things. Okay? La'a has this it's a contradictory word. La'a means condemned to death, okay? Absolutely destroyed, but it also means sanctified. And so we went from la'a to la'a. Kaho'olawe did. Okay? Kaho'olawe was absolutely condemned to death. Okay? Kaho'olawe was nearly destroyed. But from that condition of being almost less than nothing, everything was born. It's from the momentum of aloha ʻāina, this aloha that grounds everything in the Hawaiian political mind, okay, in Hawaiian philosophy. You know, nowadays everybody talk like, oh, what is Hawaiian worldview? Aloha ʻāina. Yeah? It comes out of destruction and that rebirth. Okay? That is the power of ho'omana. That is the power of the akua and the kupuna. Only the sacred can elevate something that is destroyed to something that is your ali'i, yeah? to which we kawa to. And it's by, like Brandon was saying, it's this iterative practice. You got to be committed to it. You got to have a critical mass of people who are willing to go 15 months, 10 years, so that by the time 1990 came around and George Bush Sr. was asking Pat Saiki, what would it take to get elected? She said, oh, I think, maybe if you return Kaho'olawe to the Hawaiian people, we get chance Republicans. Yeah? And she still lost. But right there, executive order, they went sign them over. But it's through that constant building of mana on Kaho'olawe, we continue to pump our resources, our spirit into the ʻāina. And that's what elevates the mana of the ʻāina and elevates it to a position where we don't got to question if we're the kawa or not, because we know already the ʻāina ali'i. And that's been really kind of the guiding philosophy. So like Davis was saying, civil disobedience is a big thing, but I think what we saw with Kapukaki and what we saw with Mauna Kea is we only disobeying them. We obeying us, We obeying our kapu. We obeying our kanawai. We keeping in alignment with our akua. And whether that be Kane Kawaiolo with Kapukaki, it'll be Kanaloa with Kaho'olawe, and Lono in our makahiki ceremonies, which is how we got first access to Kaho'olawe. But we're not just disobeying. We're not just making any kind. There needs to be a certain discipline. And that discipline is what gives us aloha ʻāina.
Mahalo, mahalo. Awesome, Mana'o. We're edging up on time, so I'll go give everybody one kind of final, not too long, sort of outlook, statement, call to action, closing thoughts, any of those ideas for folks. Would like to start?
I'll go. I think closing statement, call to action is be ready to assert our sovereignty. I will acknowledge, ʻOhana stepped in under Kai Kahele's leadership during this fiasco with the governor and Secretary Driscoll last year, and they bypassed the governor. They responded to our requests as community organizations that asked them to assert their standing and sovereignty and don't allow the governor to speak for us. And so they're attempting and moving forward with trying to talk directly to folks at Congress and I think the administration to see whether that bears any fruit or not. That's the kind of steps we need to take. And so, but we can't rely just on ʻOhana. Asserting our sovereignty, what does that look like? When I say the governor doesn't negotiate for us, well, the question will be, well, who does he negotiate with? And ʻOhana will be one of those entities. DHHL will be one of those entities. But that's where our kuleana, our role comes in. They have to meet us where we're at. We can be disruptive. We can stop and disrupt business as usual for them and force them to come to our communities. They do it the easy way for themselves, make it easy for themselves. They want to put out a survey and go online and answer the questions. No, you got to come into the communities where the military's in their backyard. Waimānalo, Wahiawa, Makaha and the west side, Waimea on Hawaii Island. You guys got to get out there and we got to force them to come to us. And that's what it's not going to take 1,000 people shutting down a road, but when the confrontations do occur, the community got to back them up. And we got to show up and demand that business as usual is no longer acceptable. And that's what I mean by asserting our sovereignty. And last thing, Hui Aloha ʻāina is doing some organizing and education. So I figured I'd share that for people to go look up check out that link, learn more. They're deep, they're organizing in multiple communities to do education and awareness around the lease issue, what actions we can take, steps we can take. So check it out. Mahalo.
Mahalo, Davis. Kaipu.
Yeah, last words. Mahalo. Mahalo, everybody for coming out and participating in this very important conversation. But with as my fellow panelists have illustrated, if anything, Kahoʻolawe stands for the fact that we get chance. It's nothing is set in stone. Like when Josh Green was saying, "Oh, absolutely no, we're not gonna have sovereignty, whatever." But you think like the Irish, they was fighting for 400 years, yeah? And for 399 years, people was telling them, "You're not gonna get sovereignty," And so what we gotta do is we gotta operate, obviously day by day. We kind of try plan, and hopefully in 100 years we can take care of some stuff that we've been waiting on 100 years to resolve. But we gotta organize. We gotta realize and try to communicate to our hoa kanaka that this ʻāina is our ali'i, and we gotta be in a position to serve it rather than looking for ways that it can serve us. And part of that is making a sacrifice. This one of the things that George Helm said is, we're not getting our kicks out of this. Nobody having a good time doing all this aloha ʻāina stuff. This stuff is brutal. It's at some points miserable, but it is grounded in that aloha, which tells you that this too shall pass. We shall overcome this because we know that the haku'i kaua too is worth whatever tribulations we gotta go. And it's in being that kaua together with you get your hoa a'i pu'upu'u on the side of you, and you stay dragging. You stay trying for kulia up that mauna. You try to find that nu'u. When you find that nu'u that you can kulia for, you already la'a. You're already condemned to die on top of that mauna. But you're gonna know, when you kulia, you're gonna have your mo'opuna carry your iwi to the top. And when they get to the top, they're gonna see the next summit. And that's the mauna they're gonna be la'a too. So this is not pau, because as Uncle Emmett says, when we commit for generations. And part of your commitment is to commit somebody else, to find your replacement, to commit the next generation. It's only if we get this sort of continuity that we get chance. And trust me, we get chance. Yeah, that's...
Mahalo, mahalo.
I think one thing I'd like to leave with everyone is, thinking about these leases and the thousands of acres, tens of thousands of acres that we're talking about for Hawaii. They're 65-year leases that are coming up in 2029 to 2032. So in our lifetime of everyone in this room, this is the one time where, not only was it illegal under our law, but it's going to be expired under state law. It's going to have no agreement under federal law. And so it's an opportunity. And these times, after the Mauna, other issues that we've had, people want to say, well, where is everybody? Where did all that energy go? Everybody's doing their thing in their communities, and we need that, and it's building. But we're coming up to one of these peaks again with those expirations. It's a time where there's going to be a huge amount of pressure. We've already seen it. The governor is feeling that pressure. It's coming out in the press releases. And it's going to get worse. And this is a time where law gets really murky. The federal government, our rights that have been preserved by our people, by our kingdom, in those land titles that we rely on, we can count on that even under state law. We got to fight. And we sometimes got to educate a lot of people and the justices and the judges, but we got that fight. When it comes to federal land and the federal control, it's much more difficult. So we can't afford for them to gain that control, to get those new agreements, that new authorization for these 40,000 acres. We got to fight with everything that we have to keep that from happening, because it will be much more difficult on the other side. I mean, we've seen that for 60 years already. So this is an opportunity, but like we saw with Kapukaki, with Red Hill, it took everyone in the community. It took government, it took Congress people, it took community organizations, it took, even schools and everyone across the ʻāina, or across Oʻahu and more, coming together to say, ʻAʻole. The one clear message that we took with Koʻihonua to the admiral, to the military, was we're all committed. We may have different political positions, we may have different visions for our political future, but we all agree that the continued existence of Red Hill fuel storage facility on Oʻahu cannot be. It is far too great a risk to our aquifer, to the water, to the people of Hawaii for that facility to continue, and we are committed to be here until it is shut down completely. And so we saw it get shut down, officially. We're still waiting for the rest of that to happen. But that kind of coming together of everyone in our community is going to be what it takes to see this happen. And if you don't think it affects you, go outside on any island. I can't even hold a class at our farm without stopping to wait for artillery fire coming from Pu'uloa, without stopping to wait for the helicopters that are coming from Lihue, from Schofield, on their way to Pu'uloa, to Pearl Harbor. It's everywhere. It's affecting all of our communities in all different ways. The depleted uranium that they never used is suddenly, now they admit that they've used it. That kind of thing is going to exist in our soils and our waters for future generations. So what can we do as a community to prepare for this moment, to make sure we're also educating ourselves and not getting misled by propaganda that's out there that says, we're going to get this deal done by the end of the year, and actually there's no authorization for that. It's going to keep happening, and it's going to get more intense and more intense as we head towards those expirations. And I think, like everyone has said, if we are on ʻāina, if we're grounded in our values, in our ike kupuna, in our ceremonies, we can prevail. And it doesn't mean, if it doesn't happen tomorrow, that it can never happen. We have to believe, we have to trust in the vision of our kupuna that came from way back when, that they knew that they would see this happen one day. We know that sovereignty can happen, but what is really sovereignty? Why do we want control? We want it because we want to malama this place, right? We don't want to just do what's been done all this time. We want to care for it. We want to bring it back. We want ʻāina momona. We want clean water. We want clean land. And keeping that vision and those values together and really pulling on everybody and counting on everyone to participate. So keep an eye out for opportunities. Create your own. You don't gotta wait. There's room for everybody. There's work for everybody. Do what you can in your communities to participate and to advocate. And I know we can do this together. Mahalo.
Mahalo. Come here. Brendan.
Yeah. I'll try to be brief, but first thing is understand that you have sovereignty. Don't just take my word for it. Look at U.S. law. They said we never relinquished it. When you realize that yourself, and you can begin to imagine that future, go and find kuleana anywhere. Because like everybody has said, we need you all, right? Go connect with different organizations out there, not just the ones that have been around forever, like us, PKO and all of that. Get like people like Emma Kodem, Navahini Ko'i, get, organizations, Hui Aloha ʻāina, get all these different community groups popping up. Go join them. Go check it out. Figure it out. But know that you guys have a place, and don't be afraid to go visit and go kako other people. This is This is all a kako'o thing, and they gotta see us going out and getting outside of our comfortable groups and getting outside of our silos and going and connecting and seeing how we can all support each other. What they're afraid of is us doing that. Because that critical mass is powerful when we all stroking at the same time, when we all on the hali line, passing the pohaku, all at the same time. Every last Saturday of the month, we host an ʻāina day up at Koʻihonua, Waimānalo from 10 to 2. If you guys ever are free, please join us up there, because what we also need to do is touch ʻāina. And you know, this fight has burned out a lot of my ʻOhana, a lot of friends, and a lot of people. So we got to connect with ʻāina, but then we also got to go where ʻāina is being productive so we can envision that future. So it's not just a discussion somewhere on a panel, but it's actually happening right now. And it will happen. It's an inevitability already. We already set the course. Everybody in their canoe. We're just waiting for everybody else for jump on board and come help us do our thing. But mahalo, come on up.
Mahalo. How about a hand for our panelists? Awesome conversation. Mahalo, everybody, for being present. I do want to add my little 10 cents call to action. I think restore ʻāina, listen to these folks, model the kind of collective leadership, and like Brandon's saying, getting out of silos. And the one thing I would ask everybody is question, the military-industrial complex creates an economy of death. And I believe Hawaii deserves better than an economy of death. I believe we can do better to create jobs and well-being and life in our islands than continue to support weapons that destroy our ʻāina, that kill, damage ecosystems, and are basically training to kill other people across the planet. And we can't be the epicenter of that anymore. And so mahalo nui for everyone's courageous work. Thank you to you folks for your leadership. And I guess Kokai said we're going to see you on the mauna. So I'll use that metaphor. But mahalo nui kako, aloha ʻāina.